All right, man. Hey, good to catch up.
Sure thing. Yeah.
I'd love to kind of delve into it a little bit more, but maybe let's start at the beginning with the pre-ARC days and what you've been up to, and then the formation of ARC and where that has taken you so far and where that's taking you going forward.
Sure thing. Yeah. So yeah, my name is Ethan. I'm the president and executive director of the Amazon Research and Conservation Collaborative, which is our nonprofit focused on conservation in the Amazon rainforest, both of biodiversity and cultural heritage and kind of their intrinsic link. I got really into ecology at a young age, always kind of was into the environment. Growing up in the mountains of Washington State, kind of found my passion for wildlife and wildlife conservation when I was in college, had some incredible mentors there. Eventually found my way here to New York to do my PhD in ecology and evolutionary biology, which is where I am now finishing my PhD. Really had kicked off the nonprofit work with the Amazon Research and Conservation Collaborative in the beginning of 2024 last year, in really a strong effort to try and kind of push more time and energy and resources towards solutions to biodiversity loss, to cultural survival, and all the other kind of important challenges that are being faced in the Amazon rainforest today.
You're clearly tackling a lot. You maybe help us zone in on where you're trying to tackle. Amazon's a big place, like where you really focused. And then you've got research, conservation, and collaborative. Like you've got a few different missions kind of built into the name of the organization. Mm-hmm. But I kind of understand like when boots hit the ground or while boots are on the ground potentially now and every day, like what's that look like? And, help us zone in on the areas that you're working in.
You're right. The Amazon basin is a ginormous area. We work specifically in the Western Amazon and even more specifically currently in the Ecuadorian Amazon. So Ecuador is one of the smaller countries in South America. It's pretty much split right down the middle by the Andes Mountains, which leads to just kind of immaculate biodiversity across the entire country. But it's, a relatively small portion of the entire Amazon rainforest. That being said, it's a disproportionately important area in terms of conservation because of its unique location, geography, and biodiversity. It harbors some of the most immensely biodiverse areas of the entire Amazon basin. And that unfortunately also overlaps the reality of the Ecuadorian Amazon being disproportionately threatened by human activities. So there's a lot of threats of oil extraction, illegal mining activity, deforestation, also subsequently their indirect impacts on local peoples and how they hunt and how they live off of the land, which has kind of reciprocal implications for biodiversity loss. So our organization has kind of honed into this area because of its kind of disproportionate importance for biodiversity conservation, the incredible species that it harbors and that are threatened by extinction today. But like you said, our name, the Amazon Research and Conservation Collaborative, kind of encompasses multiple different approaches that we take. And so our three kind of main pillars are our research, community engagement, and communication initiatives. From a research side, it's really trying to motivate research that kind of has direct connection or correlation to sustainability outcomes. So, my background is really in ecology, wildlife research, and really the efforts of the nonprofit is to try and get out of basic research and really get into research that's going to really motivate and inform solutions that actively work to conserve and protect biodiversity and wildlife populations. From a community engagement standpoint, our mission is not only also to protect cultural heritage, but there's an intrinsic link between kind of cultural sovereignty, cultural survival, environmental justice, and the outcomes of biodiversity in the Amazon. Essentially, all local communities, indigenous communities are the main stakeholders in these issues, both in terms of, how they are choosing to live off the land and interact with the ecology of the rainforest around them, but also how they're affected by the same industries and same extractive practices that also influence biodiversity. And so in recognizing this, our organization is particularly focused on working with local and indigenous communities to find solutions that work for both the people and the environment. So what are ways that local communities and indigenous groups can live to be more sustainable and kind of work to fight the ultimate fight on the front lines of conservation and biodiversity loss and things like that. And then of course the communication aspect, we're really also a big aspect of what we do is trying to just really share kind of what's going on the grounds in the Amazon. A lot of the places that we work are very remote. I mean, we're talking, days travel by boat from the nearest civilization, from the nearest boating port. And so trying to utilize our connections and utilize our community collaborations to share really what's going on the grounds build advocacy and obviously build support for our organization and the work that we're doing to try and circle back and provide benefit to the communities and the biodiversity that we're working so hard to protect.
I remember once you told us how large the area is that you're working in with this one community, and it blew my mind. Can you just refresh my memory on how many hectares was that?
So for example, one of the communities that we work with, their ancestral territory covers over 1 million, acres in the Ecuadorian Amazon. And, really their ability to defend that ancestral land, to kind of live sustainably off of it, has just such a disproportionately important role in kind of these large scale outcomes for biodiversity. Again, there's multiple strategies that you can take to protecting the rainforest. One is, really going to these places and trying to purchase or kind of section off pieces of rainforest that you kind of isolate for biodiversity only. Our approach is really to try and facilitate the protection of these lands that, again, are the traditional homelands of a lot of people, but their vested interest is to protect those areas already, and they really need the resources to do that. They're kind of developing economies, their interest in having small amounts of money to keep up with everything that's going on around the world. It's quite often the only people that are willing to give that source of income to them are these extractive industries that really don't have their best interest in mind. They have corporate interest in mind, interest in coming in to extract, right? And often those deals that are made with those communities are really inequitable. And so, again, another focus that we have is trying to find, what are alternatives to that? What are alternatives to seceding your land to oil industries or working, in extremely toxic illegal gold mining practices? Are there other sustainable products or practices that you can provide? And so, what we find is, sustainable ecotourism, non-timber forest products. We're now looking a lot into like the prospect of working in the carbon markets and the biodiversity markets and seeing, how can these people that have such a disproportionate role in protecting, immense amount of biodiversity and carbon be equitably compensated for those roles while also being able to kind of practice their traditional cultural practices and live kind of sustainably the way that they always have.
Sounds like this needs a fully dedicated effort for decades, if not indefinitely. One thing that crossed my mind is just helping people understand, how do you fund and resource against all of these needs? Like you probably have a very long list of things you'd like to do. How do you find funding? How do you guys get the budgets to do those things? How do those things, is small or large as they may be, provide leverage and scalability for you to have a broader impact down there?
Our work as a nonprofit is completely funded based off of donations, corporate sponsorships, to a smaller extent, grant writing and things like that. And it's something that we try and consistently emphasize is that, these large scale conservation efforts that we're trying to promote are really like a collective effort. And, that's why we have the word collaborative in our name. So it's not just, an organization as a single entity that's really being able to do these things. But for us, it's really harnessing like many, many passionate people who are willing to contribute in small ways or large ways to see these actions get done. For example, our corporate sponsorships, such as the one that we have with Pale Blue, the support that we receive from companies like you guys have just such an immense impact in our ability to scale what we do. Because, every year as our collaborations grow, as our community connections grow, as our projects and programs grow, we need more and more support. But, at the moment, most of our team is operating off of tribute time, and we're working hard so that we can make this something that we can allocate our full time to. It's a consistent process of trying to encourage people to say, hey, like, this is something that takes everyone to get involved. It's a collective, collaborative effort, and saving, somewhere as big and biodiverse as the Amazon rainforest isn't going to happen from a single entity or a single person. It's going to happen from a lot of different people.
Probably fairly safe to say in this day and age that more people getting eyeballs on what you're doing through your social media channels and the like are probably the best way to allow you to help kind of share what you're doing, but also help hopefully bump into more people that are willing to make supporting donations or efforts to help you guys keep the nonprofit well funded and continuing the research and the expansion of what you're doing down there. So maybe it's a good idea to share a little bit your social media spaces where folks can jump on and give you a follow.
Just like you said, I think a big component of trying to kind of engender this like large collaborative support is, both sharing, what we're doing and reaching as big of an audience as we can, but also like trying to captivate those people when we have them. So, like we're fortunate that we work in the Amazon, which is one of the most charismatic places in the entire world. And it's hard not to capture someone's attention when you show them the giant tapir or the incredible displays of hundreds of macaws flying through the sky. But less people, I think, are familiar with kind of like how our lives here in the United States are so connected to what's going on in the Amazon. And an example of that is, illegal gold mining, which is like a huge booming practice. Most people don't realize just how much like gold that we consume, both in our investments, in our jewelry and things like that. And that a lot of that does come from places like the Amazon, directly connected to the deforestation practices that are happening, things that are happening. So we're trying to spread that message as far and wide, and obviously like channel that into support that people can receive. So, our website, which is rainforest-arcc.org, is a great place that you can learn more about like what we're doing. We're also on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, pretty much every other channel under the name Amazon Research and Conservation Collaborative, or ARCC. Every little bit of support, joining our newsletter, sharing the communication materials that we have, ultimately goes an extremely long way in trying to, again, build this kind of larger effort, larger conservation movement.
So we got connected a few years ago now as part of our commitments to 1% for the planet. And so we're always looking for nonprofits that are out there having a real impact. We kind of leverage our business and channel our business into those nonprofits to really try to drive impact. And so finding you was kind of just like sheer luck at the time, I think. And then, when you sent us that first video of the video that you made using videos from your camera traps, it was like, okay, this is really, really interesting and very cool, super impactful. And so maybe you could tell us a little bit of what you're doing with our support, specifically maybe on the camera traps and like.
Yeah, absolutely. The connection that we made, serendipitous as it was, has been just like super fruitful for our organization. In addition to the kind of sponsorship that we receive and the financial support that we receive from Pale Blue, one of the most amazing things is being able to leverage your guys' products in the field. So a lot of what we do for research involves camera trapping of, really amazing wildlife species. Traditionally, camera trapping practices have been super consumptive of batteries. This is the Amazon rainforest. It's hot, it's humid, it's rainy, and you're constantly losing electronics. You're constantly losing batteries. And when you're wanting to collect videos, those batteries are running all the time, because everything like a small leaf is going to trigger a camera to keep going and keep recording. So the ability to have a lot of batteries, but also the quality of those batteries really matters. And so we've been super excited to basically test some of your products in the Amazon, as kind of the most extreme environment to test those products. And we've been extremely, extremely excited in how well they've worked. We've essentially taken all of our camera trapping efforts and transitioned them from single-use batteries to now Pale Blue's rechargeable batteries, which basically means that every single trip that we do down to the Amazon now, we're not coming back with a giant bag of single-use batteries that we have to basically figure out where do we dispose of this material. And this is like really, I think, particularly important given that we work in a lot of places where, again, these are small communities in very remote areas. Every single piece of waste that you create has an immense impact on that area, both physically and kind of environmentally, but also you really don't want to go to a place like that and see yourself creating any sort of waste. So for Pale Blue's support for us, both in terms of really helping us scale financially, but also being able to do what we do, the research that we do in a sustainable way, really helps us and makes us feel like, okay, we're doing things the right way. We're trying to, make sure that in our efforts to kind of conserve biodiversity and have this positive impact, we're not inadvertently creating kind of waste and destruction of the environment as well. And so it's a really amazing thing to have this partnership and be able to leverage the sustainable products that you guys produce. Yeah,
we're just thrilled to be supporting. And maybe in the back of my mind, there's a dream that we'll come down and visit you there sometime. But I think probably the dollars are better spent not bringing us down, but helping you guys in the local communities there kind of monitor what's happening. And you've mentioned one time talking about how large the space was. People needed to get out and maybe canoes to use the rivers to patrol to see if there's been any encroachment from illegal mining activities and the like. And so, every dollar counts when you're trying to put fuel into a canoe to travel tens or hundreds of miles out into the jungle to patrol and to monitor and see how things are going. So we'd rather see all of our support and dollars go into those efforts. I think it would be interesting to maybe delve into a little bit about some of the ways that the communities that are involved are helping to raise funds through some of the, you mentioned some craft work and things like that. And so these communities are working together and through you to create markets in which could help bring some economics to bear to help them fund those efforts, whether it's the research or the monitoring side or just defending their wild spaces and preserving those spaces.
Communities that were fairly recently contacted by, what you consider the outside world, they're going through this very transformative, period where, again, they're very well connected to their traditional practices, their traditional culture, and work extremely hard to defend their cultural sovereignty, but they're also very much integrated into the global world at this point. I mean, it's an insane reality that, in every far stretch of the earth now, you can access Wi-Fi, you can access electricity in some capacity, and those demands are ubiquitous, right? Everybody wants in some capacity to be able to access what's going on in the outside world. And so, we're like extremely interested in trying to work with communities that again, want to, have that equitable access to the world, but in a way that is going to be better for them and for the environment, and a much better way in which we've often kind of crafted and built our societies. So, it has given me a little bit of inspiration in terms of, what, our modern technology can do in terms of sustainability. We're working now hard to create additional partnerships to leverage solar and a lot of different other renewable strategies to produce electricity in these communities in a way that's not requiring them to haul gasoline, 3 days by river just to run a generator in their communities. So, that's a really incredible thing. As you mentioned, we're also really interested in trying to create these independent economies that are working for the environment and for people. So oftentimes the income that somebody needs in the Amazon really only has to supplement their subsistence lifestyle. So a lot of people are still live mostly off of the land, the plants, the animals and things like that. But the supplemental income is something that allows them to travel into the city, get materials, things like that. And so what are the solutions to that don't involve kind of making deals with oil companies and putting yourself into these toxic, illegal gold mining practices? So one of those things that we're working on with these communities is trying to kind of connect their cultural and traditional abilities with a broader market. So already a lot of these communities, when they have tourists come and visit, they're able to share, the amazing crafts that they take. I have like some really amazing examples of like some of the bags that the women of these communities make. This was made by women of a Warani community in the traditional Baiwari territory in the community of Bameno. And so, our goal is to say, okay, this is like an amazing thing that you guys produce. It has clearly a lot of value to people around the world that really want to, be connected to their story and the work that they're doing to defend their territory and defend the biodiversity. How can we help them get connected to those people so that, this thing really comes full circle? They can receive that income that they really need in a way that celebrates and encourages those traditional practices that are inherently connected to sustainable and conservation of biodiversity in those areas. So
it's amazing, man. I'm sure I could go back 20 years and start again and just take a few years to really do something like you're doing right now. Not a few years, but probably it turns into a lifelong kind of approach. I wanted to kind of open the floor for you to make a pitch for any individuals or companies that are looking for places to support. If there's obviously there's funds that you need as a nonprofit, but if there's also other corporate sponsorships or materials that you might be looking for, maybe spend a few minutes talking about what would help ARC in the years ahead.
Thanks. So we really started this whole thing, the beginning of last year, but kind of officially hard launched in the middle of last year, 2024. And so, right now we're still really getting this thing off the ground. And I think I can speak for, everyone in our small team that are projects and programs and ambition and impact is scaling a lot faster than than we anticipated, which has been extremely fulfilling and rewarding, and really has shown that, okay, this is a venture that really can drive a lot of change and is going to be worthwhile. But for us, it's really, again, financially, how can we keep up with the potential that we have to make that change and kind of put these solutions to action. So we're constantly looking for both individual patrons who want to donate. We have a membership program, so people who give monthly or donate over a certain amount on an annual basis. We work closely with those people, and we try and connect them with what we're doing on the grounds, make them feel like and really show and demonstrate that their contributions are really driving this change. From a business standpoint, we're looking for any businesses that are interested in trying to kind of also drive change in the Amazon and really want to work with us to drive that change. So yeah, corporate sponsorships and any contributions, profit contributions from businesses, corporations go a huge way in the work that we do. And then from a product side, as we're getting these projects and programs off the ground and really figuring out what is the extent that how far can we really take this, so many material needs that we have. It's really hard to pinpoint anything at the moment, but camera electronics, bags, those are also things that we can leverage for if we do start doing more fundraising events, things that we can give away. I think that's the beauty of the partnership, is that if people can connect us with their products, we'll be able to leverage that both in the field, but also to connect others with those products, and which will generate more support for what we do, more support for the events that we're going to be throwing and hope to throw in the future. Anything helps at this stage. We're just trying to get it off the ground, and it's getting off the ground really fast. We really need the kind of financial and material support as much as possible, wherever it comes from, because like I keep saying, it's not something that is coming from any one person. It's coming from a collective of people that recognize kind of the urgency to protect these parts of the world and their kind of inherent value globally for biodiversity conservation and carbon and climate change and things like that. So,
well, you guys are creating a lot of awareness and certainly inspiring a lot of people. Hopefully, we get some people to follow up with you and see what we can do on behalf of the Pale Blue team here in Park City, out to you in the gorges of Central New York that I know reasonably well, and to your team that down the Amazon, the folks down there. We're just honored to support in any way we can to get you a bunch more batteries, solar chargers, and headlamps to take down, and those should be useful, and save those trips to the city for getting other essentials, and put those resources onto the conservation side of all your efforts, man. We appreciate what you do, and keep it going.
Yeah, right back at you. Our group is extremely grateful for the partnership that we have with Pale Blue, both in terms of the rechargeable batteries and sustainable products that we're able to leverage in the field to do what we do in the most sustainable way, but also for, the financial support that we receive from you guys. It goes a huge, makes a huge difference, and it has been instrumental in getting us off the ground from where we were last year, and pretty much what was just a hope and a dream and an ambition to now it's looking to be something that we're gonna scale tremendously and really make a much bigger impact than we could have ever hoped. So thanks to you guys as well.
Yeah, Ethan, if you could share a story or two about the most amazing thing that you've seen out there, be it animal, people, cultural, or otherwise, maybe a couple stories of some amazing things that you've bumped into or unexpected things.
I think one of my most amazing kind of wildlife experiences was myself and Naya, who is the vice president of our organization, were collecting data out in the field, a very remote part of the Ecuadorian Amazon. It was a very extremely long day, and we were kind of out in a fairly kind of remote area of where our research was located. And we were coming kind of up this hill when we turned the corner. And as we're coming up this hill, probably only 10 meters away, coming down the hill, are two grown tapirs looking straight at us. And tapirs are fairly rare, but to see two together is something extremely, extremely special. And so we probably looked at each other, for a good 30 seconds. Tapirs actually don't have the most amazing eyesight, but they have pretty good smell. But smell is often more delayed than, visual cues. So we probably looked at each other for, 20, 30 seconds. And then all of a sudden, just like that, they both just darted off in either direction. And to hear this, these giant, miniature horse-sized animals trudging through what is, one of the most thick and lush ecosystems in the entire world was just such a noise. And it was so loud that it's something I'll never forget. And we were fortunate to continue walking up that hill and along kind of what was an animal trail, looking down either way. And each tapir was just sitting there for like a couple minutes, kind of waiting to be reunited with each other. And so we got to just kind of be in the middle of this really special encounter. So that's one that comes to mind. Actually, though, on one of our most recent trips down to the Amazon, I got to see my first jaguar along the river. And so it was a very, very sunny day where the river levels were really low. And that's like the kind of prime conditions to see a big cat like the jaguar, because they usually like to patrol along the rivers, maybe, rest out there, just like your house cat at home. They like to sit in the sun. And I remember that entire day, we were probably on the canoe for, 10 hours. And I remember that entire day, I kept saying, this is the day that I finally see a jaguar, after, many years working in the Amazon. And I remember, my partner and I, we both, looked in the same direction and saw a jaguar dash out of the forest onto the beach and then kind of go back into the forest. And for as short-lived as an experience it was like just one of those, like, you were just so stoked to finally see like one of the, most charismatic animals in the jungle. So that's another one that comes to mind. The first story that actually came to mind, which is less of a wildlife story, is actually we were staying in the Warani community of Bameno in the southeastern Ecuadorian Amazon. And this community is, again, really kind of traditional, incredible community. And they have like a small house or hut where, visitors can stay. And as we were there kind of building these collaborations and trying to make these strong connections, we were staying in that hut. In staying in that area, you're usually on a bed with a bug net. And I remember coming back to my kind of bug net one day just to take a nap. And there was a chicken, one of the community's chickens, sitting right on my pillow. So I said, oh, this is crazy. So I lift up the bug net, I grab this chicken, I chuck it out, yada, yada, yada. I come in later that night and I, tired, it's late, it's dark. Knowing that there was maybe a chicken on my bed, I decided I'm going to just make sure. So, under the bug net, I look for this chicken. There's no chicken. I totally secure the area. Eventually, I open the bug net up. I get in, I lay my head on the pillow, and I crack an egg right between my face and the pillow, all over my side of my face. And so that was, our whole team and the whole community were laughing about that for like days after that. You
interrupted tapir date night, and then you interrupted chicken's other baby.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, thanks for the time again, Ethan. We appreciate you, all the work that you're doing and all the incredible efforts that are being made down there. So we're just honored to be in support, and we're here for you anytime, man. Let us know.
Yeah, thanks again, Tom. Super fun chatting, and yeah, again, super grateful for Pale Blue's support, and looking forward to what we're able to do in the future.